Good afternoon, everybody. This is John with Master's Tale. I'm on with Fisher today. We're doing another little fun writing exercise. So today, what we're going to be discussing is how we write superheroes at different power levels. It was something that he and I had a conversation about where we were looking at some of these mid-tier heroes that struggled a little bit to stand out whenever they were in an ensemble cast. And so we're just going to be creating this tier list, then discussing how we would rank said heroes, and then from there, discussing how we would actually put them into a tabletop game and mimic those mechanics. So first, let's rank these. And how are we ranking these heroes? Well, we're not just ranking them by every comic and every source possible. What we're doing is, as a casual to intermediate fan who's watched most of the DC animated movies, this is about how strong these characters feel, right? So can Flash technically beat anybody, maybe, or Green Lantern or whatever? Sure. But
essentially, we're ranking them via public perception.
Exactly. Nobody's going to say, yes, Green Lantern beats Superman every time. They're going to say Green Lantern gets curb stomped by Superman, like in the Justice League animated film. So, Fisher, any thoughts before we get on into this?
Well, one statement I want to make is that any hero or any character can beat absolutely any character. It all depends on the writer. And why we're doing this perception kind of ranking is how a lot of writers tend to portray these characters. We're not looking at individual takes on these characters, because a writer who really, really likes Green Lantern, piggybacking off of your example, might be able to make him take on Superman with quite a bit of success. I can't think of an example off the top of my head, but I'm sure there's a writer who's done it or wanted to do it or thought about how he could do it. And anyway, I actually saw a video recently that was the only reason speeders ever lose is because of bad writing. And right. I would basically say the same thing for any number of this cast. The only reason they lose is because of bad writing. Now, mind you, they do have to lose at some point. A hero that always wins is a very boring hero. But you also have to play to the strengths of who they're fighting and what they're fighting.
So with that being said, we talked about this and we wanted to put normal humans in D and Superman in S. So Batman, this is not Batman with special gadgets or prep time or whatever. This is Batman walking around in his regular gear as a regular person. This doesn't mean Batman can't beat Superman or anybody else. This is just where we're putting them for the sake of scaling the powers of these people. So this is where we'll start, and we're going to go from there. So the Flash. Most people are familiar with Barry Allen as the Flash from a lot of modern stuff, but mostly from the Justice League animated world. Where are your thoughts on him generally? Because he's actually pretty hard to place in my mind.
Well, I've seen about maybe 4 properties with him in it. 5, actually. I saw the CW show.
Mm-hmm.
And also Young Justice, the old DCAU.
He runs anywhere from light speed to just above the speed of sound.
Like, to literally affect
crazy how different it is.
Like, Flashpoint is a thing. The fact that he can rewrite time. And it's just, that's okay. Like, that's the reason why people kind of dismiss him as the Joker, and then, well, not the literal Joker, but as in the kind of comedic aid of the cast of the Justice League, because there needs to be one. And then he's given some pretty ridiculous powers on the side. Like, he can just run back and create a whole new universe. Okay.
Yeah, it's very strange because you'll have him get like taken out by like a stray backhand from like Doomsday and then beat Lex Luthor and Brainiac combined. So I'm thinking for him, the only reason why I wouldn't put him in S tier is because he is inconsistently written. I'd put him in A. He's just below
Yeah,
Superman in most things, but then has random moments of being unbeatable, basically.
just like I said earlier, it takes the writer to make him work because generally, and someone pointed this out about the CW show. The CW show would have been over in an instant had he just used his powers most of the time.
Sure.
It's kind of sad because he's a really interesting character, and they've made a lot of good, flashes, kid flashes. Uh, Godspeed is one that they kind of screwed over. But basically, what I'm saying is that when you write a speedster, it is controversial based on how much you give him, especially if you keep giving him powerful plot point powers a la Flashpoint. So, yeah, I think would be a good one. He can't body Superman in every form of media, but Superman usually can no sell everything if we really look at it. So, or at least people put him at the top.
So the next one is Green Arrow. I feel like Green Arrow is right there along with Batman. Not that he's bad. He can definitely beat other superheroes, but he's a regular person. There's nothing about him that's like, he's going to go and solo Doomsday or Darkseid or something like that.
So my perception on Green Arrow is a little interesting. I saw the CW show. That was my first kind of perception on Green Arrow, other than Batman, the Brave and the Bold.
Yeah, and he can
So
kind of fight the Flash in that one, right? Like he's like,
yeah, well, then again, like Brave and the Bold is more of a jokey, like Silver Age comic stuff, or
sure.
the Gold. I forget exactly. I'm not a comic historian, but as far as the CW show went, he's a gritty hero. Well, that's a gritty show, but basically, he's meant to just be another Batman, not exactly XP, but and again, I don't know why he was created or if he was created for a different company and
The
they folded
fame of
into
Robin Hood,
DC.
basically.
Yeah, he's a Robin Hood. He's a modern day Robin Hood, and it spawned off of that. He's not a bad character, and he has some very interesting villains at times, but they're never like taking a term from the ranking folks. He's city block level. Like there isn't
Yeah,
exactly
like
anything really
Merlin.
strong that he's
Yeah.
fought on, unless, hey, prove me wrong. I don't know the Green Lantern mythos is. I'm sorry, pardon, Green Arrow.
Well,
Got
yeah.
too
So
many
taking
green
from,
characters, but yeah.
I mean, I would say his two most popular things are Arrow and then his stint in Justice League Unlimited, where the whole point of him in Justice League Unlimited was that he was the common man. And
Yep.
he was always in over his head. And that was what was kind of entertaining. Unlike Batman, who always has a perfect plan, Green Arrow is kind of like, I've got a bunch of trick arrows and I'm going to try to deal with them. So I feel comfortable putting him around where Batman is
Yeah,
as
I would
far as
agree.
powers.
Well, that being said, he's also got a lot less training than Batman. I don't
Sure.
know his origins as far as his training, but in the CW show, he gets trapped on an island.
Yeah, I
And
think that's the
all that.
general gist of
I
his
think so.
background.
Prove me wrong, comment
Yeah.
section. But Batman went on a multi-year binge of training
But you
that
notice what's
keeps getting
interesting
added
about
on.
what's interesting about this list right here, though, so far is both Batman and Green Arrow are great written characters. So I wonder if that'll keep holding.
Oh yeah.
Okay,
And
so
now both of them have been written poorly before, but
sure.
in general, people like them, and people like how they were written. People like how they're portrayed.
Okay, Black Canary, I feel like with her supersonic scream is one step above like humans. I would put her ironically in C for Canary. Unless you have like a different spot you'd put her.
No, I would agree with that one. She does have roughly that kind of tiering, I would say. The
Right.
thing
It's
with
not
Black
like Black
Canary,
Canary's gonna like dead stop, Orion or Darkseid or Steppenwolf or something by screaming at him. But she'll
So
take out like a room of people.
the thing with Black Canary is she fits in with the Green Arrow mythos. I think she has her own run and that sort of thing. But the first time I ever saw her was Batman Brave and the Bold, and she was fighting Solomon Grundy. But basically, she's just another street level hero. Nothing wrong with that. Those kind of stories being so small in scope usually lend itself to better writing. And that might be a generalization, but looking at a smaller street corner and saying what all happens on that particular street corner. Like the smaller you get, the more details you get.
Right. Well, and the other thing too that I really like about her is she's often, and why I put her one step above Green Arrow is she's often saving him. Right. They're like
Yeah.
canonically a couple, both kind of street level fighters, but she's just got that powerhouse in her. Okay, the Atom. So
Oh boy.
he can size shape to become giant or small. I very rarely see him. He's tagged Black Adam with a lucky punch in the Black Adam movie. He is mostly used as like a kind of sneaky agent almost because he can shrink. This one's kind of weird. I almost want to put him in D just because he's normally used as like a specialist. But what are your thoughts on that?
Okay, so do you know why they don't often use him very much?
Why?
There was a comic series called Countdown, and I'm not going to get into the wide history of it, but basically it was the DC universe is ending or having some kind of great disaster, literally, in quotes, the great disaster. And basically, a lot of DC characters go on this wild chase through the different universes to find Ray Palmer to solve the great disaster. Let's just say Countdown didn't go so well. I know that's all long ago rewritten, but it's soured a lot of fans on the concept of Ray Palmer. So yeah, as far as what he's done, I can think of maybe The Brave and the Bold. I didn't even watch the Black Adam movie, so I
He has some
genuinely
interesting stuff in that, like, he likes when Amazo comes in Justice League Unlimited and he beats the whole Justice League, the Atom shrinks himself down. And because Amazo's
I
trying to come
recall
to
that.
get Lex Luthor, and he shrinks Lex Luthor down like subatomically, maybe C. I mean, it's just so weird. He's just got
He's
a
got a
weird
very
power set.
niche. He's got a very niche power set that he tends to use his brain more often than his actual power, which is he tends to not like put those two together. And I blame writers a lot for that. They don't go, hey, that's a character that can do. Look, Hank Pym over in Marvel can do a whole lot of stuff. I don't know why the Atom has been kind of sidelined. Maybe it's that he has a very basic
Well, what's
costume
wild about it
design.
too is they had him shrink down with like a microscopic piece of kryptonite and go into Superman's bloodstream in Injustice, the film.
Yeah.
And he like took out Superman temporarily because of
Yeah.
his weird set. So I'm gonna put him at C, C-ish.
Yeah.
The question, I feel really comfortable with the question in D. I don't see any reason he's not particular. I mean, he's like Batman light almost. And now there are some like super powered versions of him, but they never make it to the mainstream. The
Now,
only real thing I can think of the question from is Justice League Unlimited.
now, should
and
I
maybe
ruin
he's
this
in
whole
Batman.
section by speaking in nothing but questions?
No, you that would be the worst. But unless you feel differently, I feel like he could go in D. As far as powers are concerned.
No, he's a
Steel.
super interesting character. Hold on. The question is a super interesting character. I really love when he shows up because he's the most neurotic character that ends up being really fun to watch work. He's not Batman. He's
And
like
he's
Batman
right a lot of the
cranked
time.
up. No, he's right, and that's the funny. And he's wrong a lot of the points on the most ridiculous things. He's kind of right like, by matter of quality. Quantity, not quality. Batman will seduce something. Pardon, not seduce something. Wow, I'm tired.
Deduce, yeah.
Yeah, Batman will
Batman
does
something. That too, I guess.
Yeah, I know he does do the seducing thing, but the question will just go, no, this is a thing. He's just a conspiracy theorist. He's just a conspiracy theorist who managed to get high-level clearance in the Justice League.
It's really Alex Jones, the superhero.
Yeah.
Maybe not quite as controversial a character, but
no.
Okay. So next up, Steel. So I've actually seen a lot of Steel. Steel was in um, the it was after the Superman Doomsday movie. I forget what it was called, but it was where a bunch of people were trying to replace Superman. He's shown up in My Adventures with Superman. He's shown up in Justice League Unlimited. Um, Steel is great. I would say builds a mechanized suit to be like Superman, is a big Superman fan. I would say maybe like B. I don't know how familiar you are with Steel as a character because
I'm not. He's relatively newer, I think. He's not one of the OG, I think. If someone can prove me wrong, go ahead. But I am
I haven't
interested
seen
in
him
this.
since, he's newer-ish. I don't see any old shows with like Steel in them.
I think he was newer, but I did like him in that Superman film, and I did like him. Like, he does a lot of good things. He's got a neat kind of vibe to him. He's not, take it this way, he is not Iron Man, and I appreciate that.
And he's got a hammer with a
like,
rocket on the back of it. I mean, that's just,
It's ridiculous, but it also looks kind of neat. He harkens
Are you
back to
cool
a
with
time
B
of.
tier, or would you put him in C? Where would you place him?
I
Because I
would
don't think
put him
he's A
in.
or S.
I would put him in B.
Yeah.
I generally trail things along the type of, okay, one is basic human, two is they've got something interesting or a unique skill, such as being a really good teacher or an astronaut or something like that. Three is, oh, they have a power. Four is they have a trained power. Five is, okay, they're really good with their power. That sort of thing. B, as far as I'm concerned, would fall under that. They're really good at what they do, but their power's not that strong.
Right.
He's good. He's really good, but he's not like strong.
Yeah, he gets beaten in Justice League Unlimited. He gets beat up by the Supergirl clone. He gets beat up by one of the Superman clones. He's good, but he's a punching bag, and this is going to be kind of a trait that we see common around the B, is that they're good, but
they're showing their competency in being a wall as opposed to being a conqueror.
Right. Okay, Dr. Fate. I think that this is the first one in contingency for S tier besides Superman.
Okay, so
I don't know what your thoughts are, but he's just got so many powers.
My issue with Dr. Fate falls under the same issue that magic in any fictional property falls under. Magic is extremely ill-defined. Magic is whatever the writers want him to do, he'll do. And that's kind of, look, I know him from Young Justice. And that actually was kind of a controversial character in Young Justice, believe it or not. But he's literally meant to do whatever the writers want him to do at any certain point against the forces of chaos, literally quoted. I would put him in S because generally he's had some ridiculous things, and generally people don't put him as a weakling. When it's tips down, I would say S in the simple manner that, and someone in the comments might say, "Oh, but Superman's weak to magic." Well, pretty much everybody's weak to magic. So basically,
we're just talking about how they generally write him, because I'm
if we're comparing,
the Black Adam movie, he gets beat by Black Adam and he gets beat by Sabat, but
I mean, then again, that's one property. Generally,
that's the worst showing I've ever seen for him. That's
what I'm saying. Like that's the exception, not the rule. Most of the time, if you're looking at Dr. Fate, someone will go, "Okay, that's a heavy hitter." Right. I'd say S. I'd say he's he's the magic version of Superman.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. Vixen. So Vixen is interesting, mostly from the property Justice League Unlimited. She has the power to touch a magic amulet and have the power of an animal. So she can be as fast as a cheetah, or as strong as an ox, or as heavy as an elephant. This one I put this one on the list. She's not as famous, but just because her power set is not flies and punches things, which is a lot of the power sets, I'm fine with putting this one around C. Um,
Yeah, she again has a trained power, and she's probably pretty good, but I can't think of a single feat off the top of my head of what she's done.
yeah,
I
she
might
gets
not
beat
just
up
be
by
very.
Wonder Woman. She's like,
I mean, that's Wonder Woman. I might not be all that familiar with Vixen. I think I've heard her, or I've heard of her,
yeah.
compared with Beast Boy a lot of the time, weirdly enough.
Mhm.
So I, I'm not sure. I can't really give much of an opinion. Neat power though.
Yeah. Captain Atom, canonically, Justice League Unlimited gets beat up by Superman, gets beat up by Superman and Batman, and Superman Public Enemy. I feel like he's an A or a B. I don't. He's impressive, has radioactive power, but like he can channel red sun energy that specifically hurts Superman and still gets beat by him every time they fight. Um,
You
in
know,
common use of this character, I'd say maybe A or B. I don't know what your thought is on it.
I'd say A probably because he is a heavy hitter. But honest to God, like I completely forgot he existed.
Yeah,
He's he isn't really used all that much, at least from what I recall.
yeah,
Like,
he siphoned off nuclear power at times. A lot of times he makes like heroic sacrifices because he can eat radiation. Um, but
I mean,
generally speaking, it's like, okay, we need a guy to take the fall, or we need a guy to show that this dude, whoever is fighting, is like a big deal. And
yeah, he's the stopgap before the true hero shows up. Yeah,
I'm gonna
that's
say B. I'm gonna say B. He just canonically loses in now.
which
People
is
are gonna be like, in the
sad because
comics, he does this, and that's not what we're talking about. Just general. If you're a general audience
this
member
is
and you've
public
seen Captain
perception. And again, like I haven't seen a lot of things with him in it. He might be super strong in a lot of showings. And
Okay,
maybe it's my perception also. I just don't really know all that much about him, and I haven't seen him win very
sure.
much of ever.
Yeah,
I'm trying to
Booster
scrape my
Gold.
brain. Okay,
Okay,
he's just the comedic relief who actually has
yeah,
some powers
he's
behind him.
always portrayed. So he's guy from the future with like year 4000 technology or something like that. Um,
He's a janitor who stole the suit.
he's
Yeah.
kind of a time lord. I would say maybe B. He's just somewhere in that mid tier. I can't think of anything amazing that he's done, but like on paper,
He's
he's
done a
supposed to be
few
really
really
powerful.
good things, and he has done some cool things. But again, perception kind of kills him as he's that comic relief character that from the
Right.
future that
Like
always
he's
screws
he's a
something up.
joke in
He's a
Justice League
joke
Unlimited.
character, and like, hey, you need to have characters that do that. Can't be nitty gritty all the time. Makes for a very
Hawkman,
dull.
I feel like Hawkman and by extension Hawkgirl are the definition of B. Like
Yeah.
they fly, they have super strength, so they can, and they've got nth metal, so technically they can hit hard enough to do damage to things because they've got like, you know, DC's adamantium equivalent. There also some talk about their mace being anti-magic. I don't know if that's limited to Justice League Unlimited or if that's, whatever, but they've got a electrically powered mace. But I can't put them any higher than B, but I don't want to put them lower because they are superhumans with flight and, I mean, whatever.
As
Um,
far as I'm concerned, there's a whole race of these beings. There's a whole,
Thanagarians. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, there's like,
Now,
they attempted to
supposedly
conquer
the metal
things.
and the weapons are special to them. Like there's a race of them, but like there's different canonical things saying that the wings were made or the wings were like enhanced with metal. There's a lot of different origins for these guys. But anyway, go ahead.
As far as I'm concerned, and again, I'm rolling off of a lot of knowledge from shows, not comics, because I didn't
Right.
read a whole lot of these comics. I when has either character ever shown in Justice League Unlimited specifically, Hawkgirl gets way more screen time than Hawkman, from what I recall. But and I might be wrong there. But
No, she does for sure.
it's been a long while since I saw that show.
Yeah.
But as far as I'm concerned, I'm going to go hit something pretty hard, and I'm going to get hit.
Yeah,
That's
so the
basically
interesting
what it
things
is.
that she does is she has a mace that seems to be able to hurt the undead more for whatever reason. I don't know, again, if it's like anti-magic. Whenever they get trapped by the Justice Lords, she's able to break free of the containment. So she's pretty tough, and she can channel the electricity that's being used to zap them into her mace, which is kind of neat. But I mean, in general, Hawkman shows up against Doomsday in Justice League Doomsday and gets like 2 hit and is
Yeah,
done.
that's okay. So the funny thing is why I brought up the conquering army thing is they are just part of a conquering army. Them on
Sure.
their own, they're pretty strong. Yeah, they're stronger than baseline humans, but their strength is in having multiple of them.
Right.
They're shock troopers basically, and that's
Yeah.
not a bad thing. It just makes them a little not all that impressive.
Right. If you had an army of Kryptonians, they're going to make them much weaker than Superman. Superman has to be the last of his race, or like it's just broken.
Yeah,
Zatara.
that would be it. Well, you're not
Or
technically wrong.
right. The chick with the magic. I
Z. Just call her Z and it works.
Z.
But
Okay, so Z. I more of a
so
utility character. I feel like a C, maybe. I've
so
never
the
seen her do
the
anything
funny
crazy.
so the funny thing is that she can do pretty much anything as long as she
Right.
can say it backwards, which is a pretty good handicap when you realize that saying complicated things backwards is kind of hard.
Sure.
Uh she has done quite a few things as far as I'm concerned. She's in Justice League Dark. Don't know if you
Yeah.
saw that one, but she's pretty cool. She can do a lot of things, and she's connected mildly to Doctor Fate a couple of times.
Yeah, I
But
think she's his daughter or something.
no, her father is a magician. At times, Doctor Fate is the helmet. By the way, the Doctor
Right,
Fate's
right, right,
identity
right.
attached to the helmet, and well, that was specifically in Justice League where
Well,
her
because in
father.
Young Justice, her dad takes on the mantle of
Yeah,
Doctor
no, it
Fate.
was Young
Yeah,
Justice
yeah,
where it's
yeah, yeah.
yeah, he puts on the helmet. But I would put her in C. I'd put her in
Yeah.
C because she's just a mainline human.
Okay,
This is
so
kind of falling under if you get a good sniper shot on them, can you kill them? And the C tier is yes. The B tier is no. They can probably survive it.
right. So Supergirl, I feel like Supergirl is just A. She's always that people are gonna be like, oh, she was a Red Lantern in one of the comics or something. Great. But like in general, Justice League Unlimited, Power Girl beats her up. She's always showed as kind of second to Superman. The Supergirl movie, she has a lot less. She's just young, inexperienced Superman in most of her depictions.
Yeah.
So I would say one step below. I would say that Doctor Fate and Superman, even the Flash and a lot of the A tiers would probably beat her. She might even be B. I don't know. I feel like A just because of her raw power.
Well, there's a lot of potential there, and unfortunately, she's kind of steamrolled over. Well, she's not Superman, she's Supergirl. And it's like, okay, she can do anything Superman can do, as far as I know. I might be
Right.
completely wrong. She just doesn't because she's not written that way. She's usually written as the younger cousin, so
Right.
she's not really shown winning, as far as I'm concerned. I hope the comments all laugh at me for all the wrong things I've said and all the wrong things you said and all the
Well,
things
and
we've
we're just talking
screwed
about
up.
as
But like,
general fans. So if they say, hey,
oh
there's
yeah,
some unique thing that she's done, it's like, yeah, but in general, she's
yeah,
just portrayed as the young, inexperienced.
oh yeah, 100%. So I would put her in A for the simple point of she doesn't exactly go down easy. So and she's more than a wall, as far as
Right.
I'm concerned.
Okay, so Martian Manhunter, this one gets into one that I feel like, if written properly, could kind of beat anyone. He can shapeshift, phase through solid objects, attack your mind with mental attacks. He's supposedly super strong, can fly, like as strong as Superman in some of his comics. But say like if in the Justice League animated show, I never felt that he was that strong. In Justice League Doom, he was never portrayed that strong. I would say that this is one where it's on paper, if written properly, he could beat anybody, unless they have some very specific way to fight him. And what's sad is a lot of the time that's how they'll beat him. Like in Justice League Doom, they injected him with a poison that made him secrete a flammable chemical that caught him on fire. And his weakness fire because his planet was like his people were burned and he has like a psychological trauma.
Well, take
same thing
way,
with
right?
Justice League Doomsday. They throw him into a thing of propane and catch him on fire. I feel like they just sideline this dude a lot.
Even though he's really because he's really strong. He can beat anyone. He can basically beat anyone because he can know their mind.
He can shapeshift. I mean, yeah.
The problem with Martian Manhunter comes down that in a lot of different depictions, there's a whole race of Martians still around. And like his niece, Miss Martian. But like, take it this way. He has only really ever been beat via the fire thing. There's never, I can't think of any time off the top of my head that he has not been beaten by the fire thing. Maybe Justice League Unlimited, that he got captured by humans. I don't know. Like, it, like, as far as I'm concerned, they've only ever used that one trick to beat him. Prove me wrong, but that.
Yeah, but I never
there's
feel
no
like
good
he's
way
gonna roll
to always work.
Right. I never feel like though what's interesting about him is that even though he has these mind attacks, which should be devastating, they just don't use them. Like I never feel like, oh, good, Martian Manhunter's shown up and he's gonna auto defeat the bad guy, even though he kind of should.
Yeah, and that's how it goes. He should win a lot of the times, and he doesn't because they had a fire, and it's
like if Itachi had superpowers.
Like, yeah, kind of. Like that's fine, but at the same time, again, I would put him in A.
Me too,
because he's got that same potential that doesn't really live up to it, which is sad because he's a good character.
Okay, I feel like Aquaman's another B. I feel like most of the time he is portrayed as a stronger than average, tougher than average dude with a fork. You know, like, and I don't want to be mean, but like they just underutilize the garbage out of him. He's the leader of the Atlanteans. He's probably the strongest one of them. He commands an army, and yet 9 out of 10, like Justice League Doom,
you're cutting out a little bit. Uh-oh.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yep.
Did you lose me?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
Well, a bit of a cut there.
Yeah, so yeah, that's okay. We'll just cut it. So Aquaman, again, like I said, super strong dude with a fork. The
sad thing about Aquaman, in my mind, is I don't know his power set all that well. I know he can talk to fish. I know he can control water in some way. I don't know if he's like that strong of a hydrokinetic. But as far as I'm aware,
but that power changes too. Like sometimes he's given that power, sometimes he's not.
Okay, so there's a weird thing. I'll take Avatar for example, right? Bloodbending. Bloodbending is so specifically restricted in Avatar until Legend of Korra, but we aren't going to talk about that one. That like it's only available under a full moon. Why? Yeah, because controlling the water in people's blood, is kind of bullshit. Like it's kind of broken. I don't know if he can do that. Can he? I don't know. He's heroically inclined, so I don't know if he ever would. But at the same time, he feels like he's got a lot of potential, and if they ever nailed down exactly what he can do, Atlanteans aren't exactly bottom of the barrel. And then again, like he survived having his hand cut off, like in at least 4 or 5 different depictions. Like,
Right.
he's not a weakling. I would put him in A, frankly. They just give him the
See, the
shaft a lot of
only
the time.
problem with putting him in A is that in my mind, if he fought Captain Atom or Steel, now if he's on his home turf, which they never write him as, remember,
Yeah, they
this is
never
how
put him
he's
in his
written.
own turn.
If he was on his home turf, A or S, right? If he's fighting underwater, A or S. But if not, I mean, I don't,
Well,
outside of the Atlantis movie that he's in, which he still doesn't even really shine. He fights Ocean Master, who's like another version of him, and he
yeah.
fights Black Manta, which is a dude in a suit.
I
Um,
guess take it this way, right? Steel. He'll only be as strong as his hammer and his suit. Ray Palmer will only be as strong as his ability to think through using his powers. As in, I have a strategy using my powers along the way. More often than not, he just beats his enemy using his mind. Aquaman has the ability to, roughly, I can look this up later, but as far as I'm concerned, has power over water and fish. Do you know how much water there is absolutely everywhere?
well, that's what kills me. Because
Like,
it's not, it's how he's presented. It's not what,
exactly. Like, that's why I would put him in A, is not only because of his. So, how I'm looking at this tier list is basically D is the pretty much the strongest human baseline. C
right.
is can probably take a hit from a sniper rifle and die if they don't think. B is the heavy hitter, but isn't really all that strong in the grand scheme of things. And A is
Sure.
could be an S, but is
It's
probably
just never
gauged
written that
by
way.
never written that way. Has the potential to be really, really strong. Like, I'm pretty sure in at least 2 or 3, I could be very wrong, uh, different depictions of Aquaman, the Atlanteans conquer the world. Like, they aren't they aren't weak. They aren't weak at all, and he's very strong, even on land. So
Yeah.
I don't know, man. They do him dirty a lot of the time.
Okay, so Green Lantern. I feel like Green Lantern is another example of could be an S if written right, but Justice League, yeah, I think it's Justice League War. He canonically loses to Superman. Justice League Doomsday canonically loses to Doomsday. I don't know, man. Green Lantern is interesting in that he can make anything he can imagine, and that is just we talked about that a lot. I feel like you can't put him.
Yeah.
I feel like he's an A.
So
Um,
here's the thing. The fact that the Green Lantern ring is it's a cop badge. It's a space cop badge. There's a lot of Green Lanterns. Now, there was a Green Lantern before the usual depictions of Green Lantern. But as far as I'm concerned, Green Lantern is kind of weirdly, they wrote themselves into a corner as far as the Green Lanterns.
sure.
Because Green Lanterns are powered off of willpower. That's why you have people like Guy Gardner, who is the most usually depicted as very arrogant. He's willful. That's why he's a good Green Lantern. Like, because he can use the ring to the full potential. Well, not the full potential, but you get my idea.
Yeah,
Is
yeah,
when
yeah,
you
yeah, yeah.
lose your willpower to fight, you're essentially shooting yourself in the foot. Now,
Right.
imagination does come along that way. Yeah, I have the willpower to make this rock. You kind of need imagination to, actually make something more complicated than a ball or something. But at the same time, they're meant to take on a variety of different threats, and they can. I would agree with putting him in S. And in general, like,
Or in S or in
I'm
A?
sorry,
Because I would
pardon,
say A.
A. Yeah, pardon, A.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Like, more than one Green Lantern, more than one intelligent, willful Green Lantern can probably put down some of the heaviest hitters. But as far as I'm concerned, it's usually, well, all right, he's going to make a bulldozer. All right, he's going to make a jet. All right, he's going to make a slide or something. I don't know. I just never seen him make very many complicated things, because I suppose the more complicated the object is, the more compressed your willpower needs to be. I could be wrong.
Sure. And I think Wonder Woman is in that same tier A. She's never depicted as strong as Superman. She's always depicted, though, at the top of the heap. Could be an S, but isn't depicted that way. At least in my experience with it, from Justice League, from Justice League Doom, from Justice League Doomsday. I mean,
Justice League
canonically loses
Unlimited,
to
Young
Doomsday.
Justice, the
Right.
Justice League movie. Like, she's strong. Yep, she's 100% very strong. She is not the strongest, though, and that's kind of where she fits most of the time. Like, weirdly, she's a lot more human than Superman in some
Right.
regards. Mainly
Well,
because
she has to have the bracelets to block bullets. Like, in some cases,
Yeah.
she's not even bulletproof.
No. Like, again, and that speaks to her speed, that she's able to move her wrist to block a bullet, which is really impressive as far as I'm concerned. But as far as what she's done a lot of cool things. She's
Yeah.
very impressive. Has she fought space conquerors? And maybe she has. I don't know. But I just can't think, like,
she's fought against Darkseid with the Justice League and blinded out one of Darkseid's eyes. I mean, she's up
strong.
there.
Oh yeah, she's
Yeah, for
definitely
sure.
up there. Now, written in a way where she has her full potential, or as people would put her as. Now, there's a fine line between a character that has no realism behind it and a character that is essentially kicked to the curb. Wonder
Right.
Woman has a lot of realism behind her, I'm sure that was never said before. But as far as I'm concerned, she hits things with a sword or a shield, or she ties them up with a lasso, and she blocks bullets with her bracelet or throws a tiara, as ridiculous as that sounds. She's going to hit something. She's going to fly. She doesn't really have any very flashy powers. She can defeat more enemies than, say, Hawkman. Like, she's strong. Yeah, I'd put her in A.
Okay, so I think that's going to be our list. Right now, I just want to tell everybody to like, subscribe, all that jazz, and then we're going to move on to our next section of this, which is this being our tier list of the heroes and where they sit normally. How writers compare them to one another. I think that what we need to talk about are the middle group, A through C. Because when I look at these as a writer, I think Dr. Fate is often well written. Superman, often well written. Batman, Green Arrow, The Question, often well written. The middle of the pack, not so much. And I think Cyborg and a couple of the other mid-tier ones would fall here as well. Yeah. And what I want to figure out is why that happens. So let's look at, say, Justice League Doomsday, the movie. So you have the general idea of the movie is you have Superman is going to take on Doomsday because he's the cavalry, he's the last one in, etc. And Green Lantern. So of this middle group, Batman survives a while, even though he's just got explosives and a grappling hook. Whereas Hawkman down in 2 hits, Green Lantern down in 2 hits. Martian Manhunter thrown into a propane tank that explodes. Flash down in 1 hit. Wonder Woman takes a little more time to go down, but is dropped ultimately by Doomsday in a straight-up fight. And I think the problem with these characters is, like you and I talked about in our the last section of this video, Aquaman, same thing. He's off-screen beaten. It doesn't even show him get beaten. Is that there's a lot of ways that these characters could beat Doomsday. And what's fascinating is in the movie, and we talked about this, in the movie, Batman is communicating with Green Lantern and is like, hey, we need you to create a perimeter because Doomsday can't fly, right? And he goes, this is no time for a rope-a-dope. I'm part of the Green Lantern Corps. We eat monsters like this for breakfast. And he just straight up puts him in a containment field, jackhammers him into the ground, then puts him into a containment field about 12 feet from Doomsday. Doomsday busts out, punches him, breaks his shield, and knocks him out. And it's like, Green Lantern, you can fight at hundreds of feet of distance. What are you doing?
Yeah.
So,
this could be a ranged battle.
Right. Or Aquaman. Why are you fighting him on land? He's got a fist for a brain. Lead him into the water.
Yeah. Look, as far as I'm concerned, and I've said that a few times, because again, all this is my opinion, these characters are sidelined to give paid tag. They're pity, to put it simply. As sad as it is, as someone who enjoys these characters and watching them on screen or reading about them in a comic or book fiction, whatever, I know for a fact that most people come to the DC movies for Batman and Superman and usually Wonder Woman, but you take it this way, or the Flash. It's like these guys are the ones we want to watch. They're the mainliners. Yeah, they're the big guys. Look, everyone wants to see Iron Man or Captain America from Marvel. Sure, okay. Or like, take an X-Men example. Everyone knows Cyclops, Jean Grey. Yeah, everyone knows they're the title characters as far as I'm concerned. They're the main cast and they're the main ones. No one really remembers Dazzler, as sad as it is. Like, when we're talking about these mid-tier characters, they are usually used as vehicles. Now, one-offs, they're portrayed a whole lot differently because they are the main line. So, yeah.
Well, and I think one of the things whenever you're writing, so if we were to give some advice on writing these characters, I want to go through these C to A tier characters and say, okay, if you're going to put these guys in a Justice League movie, because even think about the Justice League movie, like the big live action release. Superman is revived and basically curb stomp Steppenwolf.
Yep.
Right? Now, that's in the Josh Whedon version. I haven't gone and rewatched the Snyder clip because the Josh Whedon version, and again, this is how these guys are presented, not every single depiction of them, is Superman gets revived and Steppenwolf, who was basically fighting off Aquaman, Cyborg, Wonder Woman, the Gambit, Superman just beats them. There's even a scene where the Flash is like running to push a truck away and Superman's saving a school building. And so he's saving like 5,000 people and the Flash is saving like 4. And it's just, okay. So going through, how would you write these characters to make them interesting if they were part of a Justice League ensemble cast?
So the hardest thing to do about that is cast size. There was a very good comic book called 52. I did not read it. I need to go read it because it is very, very good. But basically what they did was after this big catastrophe happens in the DC universe.
Yeah, the new 52. Yeah.
No, 52. Not the new 52. Okay. 52. It was 52 issues of talking about from the perspective of these tiny little characters that never get written about. And it's their perspective on the DC universe and going through all these struggles. And it's so cool. It's very neat. And I know I'm talking, this is old news. This is old stuff. But basically, like they go, I forget even who's on that cast. But it's some of them that never get talked about. Or some of them that just, why are we talking about this character? Well, any character can be interesting if you give them enough to work with. When talk about the Snyder Cut. The Snyder Cut, I don't know a single darn thing about. I have not watched it. I didn't even watch the Justice League movie. Because I knew for a fact that it was just going to be once more a Superman show. Because of all things, Superman was going to get the most screen time. Screen time equals how developed the character is. And that's also in a book. You don't want to drag your book on going over different characters and expanding on these different characters. You might have a lot more leeway in a book or a comic or something along those lines, but you don't want to talk too much about a character that doesn't matter. And it's sad to say that a lot of these characters just in large ensemble casts end up being the you don't matter. and that's how it is most of the time. It's kind of
and I
sad.
think
They'll
part
get
of
their
the
moment to shine.
exercise would
But
be
it.
right. That's the reason why Superman's famous. And so I think, though, looking at these guys, what I would want to do is come up with a way to make their unique power set very useful to a story. And I think even in a way that doesn't overpower it. So, for instance, so let's just start off with the C tier with like Black Canary. So,
Sure.
Black Canary has hypersonic screams, right? Which can normally like deafen, blast people back, etc. What's cool about this power, and what I don't think a lot of people think about, is Superman has super hearing. So if I were writing a story and there was an evil Kryptonian, I'd be like, get Black Canary in. We got to drop her in like a sonic bomb and take out the bad guy because he's got super hearing, right? This is going to eviscerate him horribly. This power, because of there are so many people in this universe with advanced senses. I mean, just on this list, Vixen can give herself advanced senses. Superman has advanced senses, Martian Manhunter, Supergirl, etc. I think you can write this character as a specialist powerhouse that's brought in for like a, 11th hour save. And I don't think that it would mess anything up with her power scaling because she's not as strong or fast as him. But you see what I'm saying? And her power is sonic. What can he do? How
Yeah.
do you escape that? If you have super hearing and you're weak to hypersonic blasts, you can't escape it. You can't run away from it. Much like you can't run away from air. It's vibrations in the air. I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but I was like,
No,
man,
that's a
that would
neat
be a
idea.
cool way to write her.
No, that's really cool. More often than not, she's depicted as, again, street level. But
Right.
as, like, when we're talking about her versus larger threats, or her being the kind of linchpin, that kind of utilization of a weakness would be very interesting to see. I wouldn't find anything wrong with it. I would just, I don't know, that would be kind of interesting to see. Maybe it's already been done. The DC universe
It's
has done quite a
possible.
lot of things that I'm sure I don't know, and I'm sure you don't know. I don't have the money to go running around and picking
Well,
up old
right.
DC comics.
Yeah,
So
so as a
yeah,
mainline depiction, I think that's the way you would correct her. The Atom, I think, is self-explanatory. You're super tiny. I've seen him used in interesting ways to put like microscopic kryptonite in Superman, enter people's bloodstreams, hide in plain sight because he can become small. He can also turn other things small. So like hiding the MacGuffin. I mean, this guy, I think he writes himself as an interesting, mainstay hero. He's also a genius. Yeah, so you can write him a ton of different ways and put him in an
oh
ensemble
yeah,
cast, and he's not really lost. But a lot of the time, he's kind of this. It's almost like him, Cyborg, and Mister Terrific get put in the same role of
yeah.
like smart guy that like knows the technology, whatever it is.
And that falls
Um,
into the basic troping of characters when you have an ensemble cast, and that's kind of unavoidable. As far as I'm concerned, the only way to correctly do, and again, I say that, I preface with that phrase, because I have never written these characters. And this is a concept that I've never tested myself. But I would say a really good way, or perhaps the only way, to correctly give the amount of demonstration, I suppose, of these characters would be a show similar to Justice League Unlimited.
right.
But, and again, that one did pretty well, all things considered.
Well, and I
They
guess kind of in my mind, the way that I'm seeing the writing exercise is not putting every one of the characters in, but if you were to swap them out with a member of the
exactly.
Justice League, like if you were put them in the main seven, how would you write them to not get hawk girled? Where it's just like, okay, she's a Thanagarian, she's like flies and has super strength, but isn't really that different. I think
Yeah.
for Vixen, so Vixen's power, she has a magic amulet that allows her to not shapeshift into animals to take on their aspects. So, run 60 miles an hour or, become like as heavy as an elephant. That was another one she used. So she can like make her body like 10 tons or whatever. I think for her, to make her interesting on a team, I think giving her senses, using her senses, especially like, okay, I can echolocate because I can use bat power, or I can track with like a bloodhound's nose, or blah blah blah. I think what you do is you make her like a sensory type character that against certain villains, because again, like let's say you're Martian Manhunter, I'm trying to detect minds. Well, what if your villain is a brainless brute, right? Then you're going to want this kind of sensory tracking hound type character that's still useful in a fight. That's really one of the only ones that I could think for her. I don't know about you, how you would write her to kind of fit in an ensemble cast and not get lost.
So her amulet gives a lot of utility.
Right.
The two characters we talked about so far, Black Canary, Ray Palmer, their utility's pretty strong, but hers is, I quite literally have that one D&D ability. I don't recall which class, but it's like, well, I have the heart of a ox. I have the, pick an
Whatever.
animal and
Yeah.
pick an animal, pick an aspect. You have that ability. Does that mean something esoteric? Like, it's really neat, and it lends a lot to, whoa, that potential's very strong. You could do a lot with it. I have the eyes of a hawk. Okay, give her a gun. You can do a lot with her, and she can do a lot. It rolls down to the author's intelligence, or the writer's intelligence, or creativity in how she's used. Now, again, I can't speak to her personally as a character because I don't know very much about her. But as far as the power set, that's not a bad power set and could take her pretty far.
Yeah, I don't think that she would ever be like, punching Brainiac into the sun, or something like that. But yeah, I feel like she could have a lot of fun utility. I think
Depending on how
Zatanna,
fast she can use the powers, I would say speed of a cheetah, strength of a gorilla, just at least be an annoyance to some of the
right.
bigger threats.
So Zatanna and Zatara will just magic. You can do a
Her
lot.
name is Zatanna Zatara, but you can just call her Z. It's easier.
Whatever. Yeah. All of the magic users, John Constantine, etc. I feel like they have a built-in role. I feel that a lot of the time, I thought the best depictions were from Young Justice, where they
She's not
really were
actually supposed to be that age in canon. They wrote her
right.
in as that age because they wanted a magic character, and they're like, well, Zatanna is, really noticed, popular. Yeah, let's stick her in.
Well, but what I liked about it was like, oh, she used a spell to locate things on the globe, or used a spell to bind people, or used a spell to multiply Robin like shadow clones. It's like, okay, this is how you do a magic person. I feel like what happens a lot of times, what I see is you fall into these tropes where it's like, and I can't tell you how many times this happens. Magic person multiplies themselves to hold down an enemy. The enemy breaks free. The magic person is overpowered by the raw power of the enemy. That happens Thanos versus Doctor Strange. That happens with Black Adam versus Doctor Fate. It's just this, or Thor with Loki. I make a bunch of clones. Thor hits the ground and all the clones dissipate because he's so powerful. And it's like, man, give these guys some like planning, man. Like they can go in at a range, they can do all kinds of stuff. I feel like a lot of the times what happens is like they've got a bunch of spells, they do some flashy things, and then ultimately they get caught by the wrong punch and get knocked out of the fight. And I feel
And
like that's a waste.
that's kind of fine. But as far as and I agree with you in the fact of, oh, all right, I'm going to throw the wizard up against this powerhouse and expect them to win based on physical might or some kind of, they're impressing upon their magical powers to make them more physically powerful, which is really stupid in my mind. As far as I'm concerned, you could be invisible. You could look at a D&D wizard. Look at a wizard in Master's Tale. You can do a lot of stuff. You can do a lot of, like, she has the highest utility out of any character on this list, as far as I'm concerned. Again, preface, because I could be very wrong. Just being able to say whatever she wants backwards and it happening? Holy crap, that's big. That's huge. I don't know
Right.
the restriction as far as I'm aware. Like I say that because I'm sure she has some kind of restriction. I just don't know it. But like Zatanna has been written pretty well on a lot of different things. She was great in Justice League Dark. Like, I would write her, if I were to write her as a character. She would be very interesting as a main lead in a show. I don't
Yeah.
even know if there has been a Zatanna show. There could very well be. It could be kind of neat, actually. But just her ability to magic up whatever she wants as long as she can say it backwards is lends to very interesting foes. Maybe fast foes or that sort of thing. People actually fighting against her, not on some nebulous power level a la Dragon Ball. Like, oh my gosh, his power level's over a certain number. I can't do anything to him. You're magic. Yes, you can. Like, yeah. Anyway, there's rant over.
Yeah, no. I think you're right. I think that there have been a lot of good writing with this character. The next up, Steel. Steel is always a punching bag, and what bothers me about writing Steel is that Steel's powers never change. So Steel is, for all intents and purposes, an Iron Man version of Superman. What I think would make a great Steel story, like if I was going to write Justice League and I took out Hawk Girl and I put Steel in, is he gets beaten by a bad guy and upgrades. I've never seen it happen. I don't know why it doesn't happen. And it bothers me that it doesn't happen. Like, because he uses weapons like a big hammer. So it's like, man, okay, Steel goes in with super gauntlets, goes in with jet boots, goes in with it doesn't matter. Right. I feel like a character that's smart enough to build a suit that is
Would be smart enough
comparable.
to upgrade it.
Right, exactly. So I would see if you're going to write Steel, the beginning to the end of the series, his power is gigantically different. I mean, in the same way that Iron Man builds a Hulkbuster suit or his Thor Buster suit or all those different suits, Steel should have 20 suits that he's fighting in, that uses all kinds. And I think you could stay with the medieval weapon theme. Like he could have a sword and shield or a spear or, whatever, right?
See, the funny thing is, what you're talking about is almost exactly what Batman does. And
Right.
it's funny that they don't give that level to Steel.
No,
Weirdly,
Steel is just a
Steel is
moderately
just
strong dude
a
with a hammer.
dude in a suit with a hammer. And it's sad because he could be a lot stronger. Especially, look, he has a niche. Not a strong one, but a niche. He could give himself a huge niche if he builds. Look, every power we've listed so far, as opposed to maybe Zatanna's, could be his. There is in the DC universe quite a lot of magic science overlap, so he could probably figure out how to add in, I don't know, sonic cannons, a shrink ray of some kind of
I don't
multi-universal
even think I've ever
power
seen him
with
shoot
this.
like an energy projectile.
Now that's what I'm saying is that he
Like a
could add a
laser.
lot
Come
of
on, something.
there's a lot of things he could add in, and he would even be on brand for Superman if he wants to play into the Superman fanboy idealism thing. Well, all right, just give himself laser eyes or give himself some kind of laser. He doesn't
And
even mimic Superman all that well, which
well,
is
and
yeah.
what's so cool about him too is that he and Cyborg should be best buddies, and they're two black superheroes. You could have a Cyborg Steel buddy cop movie, which would be amazing because they're
That
two.
sounds really fun, actually.
Right. They're two like tech-powered heroes. It's like, oh man, this is awesome. Okay, so Captain Atom, we talked a little bit about Captain Atom. More often than not, he's used to absorb dangerous radiation, like a nuke goes off and he sacrificed himself. Other than that, he does use red sun radiation to fight Superman, but I feel like can absorb and blast out radiation is like super powerful. Like he could microwave people if they were in the room with him. There's a lot of uses of his powers that I just don't see.
Yeah, and again, I should know him better than I do. And it's kind of sad that I don't
But
know
that's
him
the
because
thing
he's
is that,
really
like, I've
strong.
never seen him used in a unique way. He just punches stuff.
Yeah, and that's kind of where it falls in. Again, like a lot of these characters, he's never the frontliner. He's never the this is a Captain Adam show. This is a Captain Adam is fixing the problem. Captain Adam is the person they send in to show that they need Superman.
Right.
And that's another
And
and
functionally
yeah.
speaking, he's like identical to Starfire. Like they basically have the same power set.
I actually don't know Captain Adam's origin at all. I don't know it, but I know Starfire's because I watched Teen Titans.
Sure.
So I
Yeah,
don't
Captain
know.
Adam's
Like
like a military man that experiment goes wrong, blah blah blah. Science gives him power. He's actually empty. He's like a suit, and his interiors are pure energy. So
that's actually kind of interesting. But there's a lot of
yeah,
characters like that in the DC universe. So yeah,
if you were
at
gonna
least he's a
write this
heroic one.
character, to me, the way that I would fix Cap, and again, this is just in how he's portrayed is, I would actually make him pretty significantly stronger than a lot of the other characters, but with the drawback that he can leak radiation. And so he has to be very careful. Um, you could also give him different types of radiation, just different stuff that he could do. Maybe even give him like energy absorption. Like if he's going to absorb electricity, he could like
Well,
depower
radiation.
people.
Well, we're kind of falling into the trope of energy and radiation and light and all that kind of thing being very poorly defined in comic fiction.
Because they
What the heck
kind
is
of are.
energy? Yeah, what is energy? And it's okay. The reason, and I'm going out on a limb here. The reason Captain Atom was likely made was in response to all of the nuclear, and judging by
Sure.
that mullet he's got right there in the image, he's not exactly a new kid on the block. I would assume he's probably made along
Like in the 80s.
the 80s, around that time where the Cold War. It's the fear, the red menace. It's the fear of nuclear war, and it's again, I might be wrong there, but radiation was kind of the big ticket item,
Right.
and I get that. And having a kind of radiation has had very, very negative connotations, and that's fine. That's good. Play with that. Make him a very controversial hero. He's a
Sure.
radioactive hero. His powers are naturally destructive.
And even
Yeah,
if they
play with that.
aren't, people's natural fear of it. Like, how
Yeah,
cool would it be for him to like save, like, I don't know, like a Japanese family, and they're like, oh my gosh, he's, because of just the collective horrors that that country suffered at the hands of nuclear weapons, that it's
yeah.
like, they're
Like he's a
terrified of.
living nuclear bomb. To this day, those are extremely controversial to basically everyone, but especially people who have had family members and I don't know, live under threat of these things. Like having a character that embodies those is
Sure.
really interesting as a conversation piece.
Right. And him being, you could even make his character kind of this like anti-radiation, like almost like like a green guy, like
He's
he's
Captain Planet.
right. There's tons of fun
He's
ways
got the
to write
same
it.
mullet.
Okay, so Booster Gold's comedy relief. He's always written as comedy relief. He's got abilities from the future, but he's like a normal guy with a super suit from the future. My thought on him, to be honest, is if I was going to replace him, like let's say I replaced Hot Girl, I would make it to where he knows something that none of the other cast knows because he's from the future and he is awaiting a terrible event. Like it could be like, oh, Booster Gold shows up and he's like, yeah, blah, blah, blah. And then every episode, you have him go back into a room and the comedy comes down and he takes off the glasses and it's like, man, 3 years, 2 days, and 6 hours, and you just have no idea what that means. He could be super intriguing as a member
Well, he
because he
has
knows the
been
future.
he has been played around with quite a few times. And I
But he's
do
always
like
like
what
a goofball. And I'm like,
oh
dude, this
yeah.
guy gives off
Well,
Terminator vibes. Like, man, write him a bunch of fun ways.
well, that's actually why I'm trying to think of what comic book I'm thinking of. It might have been 52.
Because some of it is
Again,
like he's like a Time Lord kind of. He can jump in and out of time. And
like putting it in a weird way, Booster Gold has a lot of potential to be a really strong character, not in power, but in writing.
sure.
He's a dude from the future who basically stole this technology to go back to the past in the time of heroes. Well, yeah, in the time of heroes to be one because his life sucked.
Right.
That's an everyman story. That's a would you do the same thing? Like, yeah, you may think he's an idiot, but would you do the same thing if your life sucked and you had the opportunity?
Right.
Like, it's interesting as a conversation character.
I
As
think
a
as far as
huh.
powers, I mean, you could give him any powers. He could stand toe to toe with any of these guys just fine.
Well, the funny thing as far as his origin and his powers and all that is he never uses them all that much to his own benefit, other than I'm going back and I'm going to be a hero. He's not incredibly intelligent. And that's kind of his detriment. He wants to be famous. I think his original claim is like, I'm a superhero from the future. He's not. But he wants the fame attached to being a superhero.
Sure.
And that just makes him a really interesting character to write.
Well, right. And I'm just thinking about this guy as like, you know, there's a ton of ways to make somebody who knows what's going to happen in the future. I mean, you could give him like a Trunks thing from Dragon Ball Z, where it's like, I'm
Yeah.
coming back to warn you guys about these crazy stuff that's happening.
Well, I think it's an interesting.
Because they could assume he's crazy too.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, that's the fact that that's a common trope. I like the fact that he doesn't fall into that trope and that
Right.
he's just a dude from the future.
Just a narcissist kind of.
He's just a narcissist from the future. Whether he ends up being a hero is up to the author. And that's the point. Like Superman. Have you ever seen the movie Brightburn?
No.
Okay, so it's basically I don't think it did too hot in the box office. But basically it's baby Superman and kid Superman but evil. That's it. He chooses to be evil.
Hmm.
And that's kind of I'm not quite sure how well it did, but I don't recall it doing very well. The fact of Superman is he lives in a world of cardboard and yada, 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 yada. He could easily, I'll give a good example, Superman and the Elite. He utterly destroys this team of villains at the very end of the film. Well, he does it fake, but basically.
Yeah, but to show them how powerful.
Yeah, to show like, yeah, if I really wanted to go off the rails, I could destroy everything, but I'm not going to. I think Booster Gold plays to the strengths of, I have this power. I have the opportunity. What do I do with it? I've given myself the best springboard possible. What do I do?
Right. No, so yeah, and I think moving on to the Hawks. So this is kind of the quintessential badly written hero. And it's particularly their power set. This is actually even made fun of on the Fairly Odd Parents. They're like, "Oh, I have wings and I fly 30 to 35 miles an hour." Like it's just they're just so lame. And it frustrates me because you know, and they even did this skit with Angel with X-Men. It's like I think it was the comedian Pete Holmes, and he's like, so you have flight, but it's not like a power. You actually flap your wings like a bird. And it's just
it's not impressive.
Well, here's the problem with DC. Look at these, and these are 20 heroes I pretty much picked at random. Okay. So once we get above B, Steel, I believe, can fly. Booster Gold can fly. So flying in super strength, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11 of what is that? Well, no, it can't. That can't be right, right? 11 of 13 of them fly and have super strength. 11 of 13.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure Zatanna can make herself fly.
Well, right. I'm just talking about being up, right?
Oh, I know, right? Like
that's really upsetting because what happens is in a normal world, somebody who could fly, had a magic mace, super strength, and super durability would be wildly powerful. But the problem with a lot of the DC heroes, the other thing too, is that a lot of these DC heroes have like clone versions of them, basically. There are like 4 Green Lanterns, and they're all better than Hawkman. You have Aquaman, Aqualad, Ocean Master. All of them are better than Hawkman. It's just
take it this way. Hawkman and Hawkgirl, Thanagarians, are a race of conquerors, at least in the Justice League Unlimited show.
Sure.
I do not know how they're typically portrayed. I don't know how they were portrayed.
I mean, in the only other time that I've seen them is as individual superheroes or as a race in My Adventures with Superman. They had a Thanagarian there.
I guess take it this way. In any other media that you would cross over with, they are planet conquering. They are better.
They're warrior angels, yeah.
They're warrior angels. They do not have a ranged option, which is kind of odd. I guess they can throw the mace, huh?
Yeah, I think they have like some little like military guns with their like a staff that shoots a beam or something.
I think something along those lines. I don't really recall their military, but as far as it's weird, as far as I can throw them, it's kind of weird to put them in the position of, all right, we're going to throw them against the DC universe, or they're in the DC universe. I think this is a method of, I'm going to look it up, but I think this is they were really strong in their comic counterpart, but they got kind of shafted whenever they got pushed into the main DC canon. Bought out. And then they just...
So this is how I would try to write them to be relevant. 1, they have a weird nth metal. And whenever you have a weird metal, you can do a lot of garbage with it. I would say using the metal as like a form of shield, and that's been done in the Wonder Woman 1984 movie, that type of thing. If you make their wings metal and it's magic BS metal, you can do a lot. They also tend to be able to absorb and reflect electricity, which we've seen in Black Adam and so on. And they have anti-magic type powers with Hawkgirl fighting Solomon Grundy. So I think you just lean into this metal having a bunch of weird properties. That's basically like, you shoot me with any energy or projectile attack, it doesn't work. And so you have to fight me up close. And I think that's how I would mitigate their weird fly at you with a mace thing, is basically long range attacks don't work on them. And their metal could be anti-magic. So then you could have them auto beat Zatanna, Zatara, Dr. Fate, yada yada. That's the only way I could really think to do it.
Well, I'm looking at their Wikipedia page right now, and apparently, and I quote, Hawkman is known as having one of the most confusing backstories of any character in DC Comics.
Nice.
Apparently he's
because he was an alien, I don't think, at a point.
No, he's a reincarnation of an ancient Egyptian prince.
Nice.
Let's see. Discovered
Moon Knight powers.
Could negate the effects of gravity, allow him to fly. So, like, initially, it looks like the mace allowed him to fly, a la Thor. But usually he's the whole Thanagarian thing where he's
like an alien,
like the alien thing. Let's see. There's 2019. How can reconciles characters' histories? Alien murderer cursed to atone for his crimes by saving as many people as he helped slaughter under the service of an alien god. This series reveals that the curse reincarnates the character across time and space, occasionally allowing multiple incarnations to coexist. That's kind of interesting. As far like, it's sad to say it, but there are plenty of ways to add different powers. As far he's okay, nth metal. All right, give the metal a whole lot of different stuff.
Yeah.
Give the metal a whole lot of different stuff.
I mean, Captain America is a really buff guy with a frisbee at the end of the day.
Yeah.
You can give him the metal a bunch of different properties.
Wolverine has a healing factor, but his mainstay is an adamantium skeleton.
Sure.
I
think that's the way you fix him, because I've always thought Hawkgirl was lame. I mean, she was lame in Justice League, to be honest.
They are kind of lame, but they're lame compared to the people there. And again, it's Flash comics, actually. So they were not originally DC main line, and they got kind of shunted in. So they were initially power scaled much better. And that's why a lot of these characters get power scaled so poorly, is because within their own canon, they get kind of thrown to the wayside versus someone like living in the same world as Superman. You aren't all that strong anymore.
Right. So the A tiers, I feel like these guys are written well a lot, but I feel like they're also sidelined as well. So going with the Flash, I'm going to be honest, the CW Flash, and I'm going to get a lot of flack for this, I don't feel like it's the character. At least it's not. Go ahead.
So I saw the CW Flash. I was unimpressed. Well, a lot of the CW shows are kind of unimpressive.
They keep writing Flash as this weird nerd.
Well, he kind of is in the original comic, but he gains a lot of confidence. He's the Spider-Man of the DC universe in a weird way.
Yeah, I guess so. Here's the difference between the Flash and a lot of other characters. The way that I think about the Flash is he runs and thinks thousands, if not millions of times faster than normal people, right? So if the Flash wants to win, he can win. One of my favorite ways that they depict this is in Justice League Unlimited. He has a bunch of villains that want to take him down, and they all fail. And he knows where they hang out. He's like, yeah, there's a dive bar, and they go and hang out there. And there's one guy who's like a Joker analog for the Flash. I think his name's the Trickster or something.
Yeah.
And he sits down with him and is like, hey man, you need to turn yourself in. Because he's kind of a god. I guess it's the Flash's big thing is that he could really hurt people and doesn't want to. And I feel that's the best way to write him, rather than being Doomsday could backhand him and just take him out. I feel like the Flash is one of those characters where it's more like, okay, I'm moving at super speed and trying to make sure I don't rip people's heads off or accidentally kill people or whatever.
So I'll give you a really weird example. Why the Flash has all these troubles, and Superman also catches this same kind of issue. Why they have all these issues fighting things is because the writing is focused on them fighting something as opposed to them dealing with a problem.
Exactly.
And that might sound odd, but take it this way. Elsa from Frozen. Elsa from Frozen is extremely powerful in universe, in her own world. But nobody comments on that. The whole movie is based around who she is, not what she can do.
Exactly.
And that's why people try and power scale her and go oh, can she fight this? Can she fight this? Yes, because she's built upon fantasy fairy tale logic.
She's like a god. I mean, she's
extremely strong. And that's the same thing here is the Flash is really strong. The Flash is stupid strong. The Flash, if written to his best potential, whatever,
he could vibrate his hand into your body and rip your heart out.
Yeah, he can literally rewrite time. That is one of his expressed abilities. That's broken. But, again, more often than not, to ground this character, they take him and they look at who he fights. They look at how he lives. They look smaller. And that's the point. They look smaller. And when he's in this ensemble cast, he's a speedster. Okay, so he has to fight the villain by being fast and punching the guy. Again, they can't think small because they're thinking too big with the cast. Whenever you have like individual episodes, for example, Justice League Unlimited, I can think of about 4 or 5 episodes off the top of my head that correctly used Flash in maybe a 3-man team as him being a pretty good support in how he handles things. That's again, Superman's the same way. He's all powerful and basically a god. The Christopher Reeve Superman takes all the nuclear weapons and puts them in space. It's ridiculous.
Right.
But also, like, he's doing that for a reason. He's a character. He's a person. He's a person with powers. You can't just write powers. Powers with a person attached is not really all that interesting most of the time. And that is why when the stronger a character gets, the more powerful a character gets. I'm not talking about utility like Zatanna or Batman or whatnot. The more powerful a character gets, the smaller you have to look at their life and how they live it. Otherwise, they just become this, well, why do they care about anything? Well, why do they do anything? They have to have strong character basis for them to do just about anything.
Well, right. And I think that that's the way that you have to write him. I don't think powering him down works at all. Because a lot of the times, because like the CW's Flash, they were like, he runs at the speed of sound. And I'm like, no, dude, the Flash like breaks the light barrier. Like the Flash is absurd.
That's express power. Yep. And even then, he doesn't even run at the speed of sound most of the time.
Right. Like he can run, like Captain Cold can bury 5 bombs in a city and the Flash can search the entire city in 30 seconds and have all the bombs. Like he's
less. Like
right.
Pizza is free. And he'd make that joke.
Right. So moving forward, and I actually want to touch on Wonder Woman before Supergirl because I had an interesting thought on Supergirl that pertains to Wonder Woman. So Wonder Woman flies super strength, super speed, etc. Right? This is female Superman, in my opinion, a lot of the time.
Right.
With the exception of she's Amazonian and can use weapons. And to me, Wonder Woman, I thought whenever they had the Batman v Superman movie, and Superman stabbed Doomsday with a spear, I could not have thought of a worse written thing to do, being that Wonder Woman is in fact trained with a spear.
Yep.
So to me, the way that I would write Wonder Woman to stand out amongst the group is make her a weapons specialist. Give her specialized metal. Let her be the weapons technical expert that's not as strong as Superman, but is a much better technical fighter. And I think that is shown sometimes, right? Like with her stabbing Darkseid in the eye with her sword. I think that there's a lot of cool stuff that she can do. But to me, I would get very technical with her fighting and make her the weapons gladiator martial artist of the group. Have her train with Batman. I think that would be awesome.
Here is a very funny thing with Wonder Woman that is often kind of repressed, and I find I find it kind of humorous. She is nearly as strong as a Kryptonian, I think. Again, I could be wrong.
She's portrayed that way.
She's portrayed that way, but what makes the difference? Kryptonians have pretty much no fighting style other than I'm a punch a thing.
Now, technically in the comics they do, but in general, how they're portrayed is that they don't. They just punch things.
Like again, like I said, I could be wrong.
Right.
But like Wonder Woman is expressly and often depicted as being very good with weapons, being very martial. Her whole thing is a warrior culture. She goes in and she knows how to fight. She is not why I would, if I were to pit them together or against each other, an inexperienced Supergirl versus Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman wins hands down. Because as strong as Supergirl is, she's a flying brick. Wonder
Right.
Woman is a spear. And that's kind of what, look, you'll get that kind of trope of the flying brick cape. It's from Worm. But as far as I'm concerned, again, your mileage may vary. The whole I can fly, I can hit things hard, I might have some other ability, a la super hearing, a la freeze breath, a la, laser sight, X-ray vision. Why Wonder Woman is really interesting is that her whole thing is I'm a really strong being as a basis, and I use tools, like you said. And I use them well because I've trained with them really well. And she just gets sidelined a lot, and it's kind of sad to see that because she could go farther.
Sure.
She's one of the big three of DC, and that's good. But she's also she's not the Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura level of kind of put to the side, but she's not as depicted as well as Batman or Superman. And that's kind of sad because she could 100% be that.
Sure. Yeah, so I think and where I wanted to reach that with Supergirl is that Superman and Batman and Wonder Woman meet as adults, but Supergirl canonically is younger. And this is even depicted in the Supergirl animated movie where she trains with the Amazonians. To me, the difference between Supergirl and Superman should be that Supergirl learns from these other heroes. I think that Supergirl could take on a lot of aspects of other heroes that would make her unique in the sense that Superman is probably fairly set in his ways. Whereas you could have like Black Canary, who's a martial artist, or Wonder Woman, who's a master weapons fighter, or Hawk Girl, or whatever, teach this young Kryptonian who's a fresh mind how to fight. And in my mind, Supergirl should inevitably outstrip Superman. Superman grew up on a farm, suppressed his powers till he was a teenager, and then basically has relied on the fact that he can like headbutt a bus to death, with his face. Whereas Supergirl is coming on the scene with a lot of superpowered entities already, like Superman wasn't walking around dealing with Darkseid at 17, whereas Supergirl is. And so in my mind, you could use her if you were going to replace, I don't know, Green Lantern or whatever in the 7 with Supergirl. I would say replace it with the young upstart who over the course of the seasons gets much, much stronger, better, more agile, more well-trained, etc.,
Or
and
just
surpasses her cousin.
Yeah, or in just some ways better or different than Superman.
Sure.
A Kryptonian that uses tools? That would be cool.
Well, right, which can never happen for some dumb reason. I mean, Martian Manhunter, I think we've really talked about him. He's got so many powers that just are awesome and are never used. Especially
Honestly, he's one of my favorite characters.
Shape-shifting to fool enemies should be used constantly. How fun would it be to have like Bane run up on Batman, punch him, Bane's fist breaks, and then it transforms into Martian Manhunter, who's strong enough to just tank.
Well, they did pull that with Superman.
Right. They have Superman dress up as
series.
Batman.
And
in
that's
the animated series.
the thing with John Jones, the thing with Martian Manhunter, is that he's a really unique character in that his race has made quite a few mistakes. Or, maybe not in some canons. And it's cool that, look, his name is Martian Manhunter. I'm not quite sure what the origin of all the such and such Manhunter names. I don't quite get it. Like, there's at least 4 characters that I can think of that have that moniker attached, and it's kind of odd. But he's very interesting because he's just a dude. Like, he's just a guy with powers. He is not some, okay. If he could settle down and just have a nice, normal life, he would have just a nice, normal life.
Sure.
Like, he's not some
to me, he's one of those that you should bring in every 7 episodes.
Yeah,
Like,
and that's usually
let's
how
go
he's
talk to
used.
the Manhunter about it and see what he's doing
Yeah.
because he's like a detective. His alter ego is like a
Yeah.
detective.
Again, he's not wow, I keep stumbling over this word. He's not very controversial as far as what he's like, how he's acted towards people. Confrontational. He's not violent.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the point, is that he's just he's a peacekeeper.
Well, I also like too that like randomly they'll just be like, "Oh, this is his wife," and like he
Yeah.
just he's seeks to because he lost his family in tragedy. He's seeking to be a normal dude, but because of his telekinetic, and he's also telekinetic. How often do you see him move stuff with his mind?
I didn't actually remember he was.
Right.
That's that's
That's what I'm
that's how
saying.
that's how rarely it is portrayed.
Right.
That's
And
kind of
so
sad.
for him, I think if I were to put him into a story, in my mind, it should be kind of like, okay, Batman's got a case that's particularly difficult. And he and the Manhunter hunt them down using his mind reading powers. And you can play
That's
him
how he's
low
being used.
crime. You can play him like high battle. You can play him at every level.
He's a
And I think
very
he'd work.
versatile character, and he's been used a lot, but he's not often been used to his full potential. And like, I can think of a few times off the top of my head that I was like, "Whoa, that's a great use of him." But again, you could always be done. But I will say this: every single character on this list could be written better because they were written by humans, and humans are flawed.
And they've been written a
So,
lot too.
and they've been written a lot. So, yeah, there best depictions? Sure. Are there worst depictions? Definitely. But the perception generally of some of these characters are really poor. Martian Manhunter, I think, has a pretty good perception, honestly.
Right. Aquaman. Aquaman is one of those
Uh,
quintessential written bad type characters.
yeah,
Um,
he doesn't have the greatest perception publicly, I would
in my
say.
mind, Aquaman is all about field, and they never let him fight in the water. And I feel like, in my mind, you should have a Justice League movie where Steppenwolf is lured into the water, and it's like Superman's like, man, this guy, we're going toe to toe. And then he like throws him into the ocean, and then Aquaman just has an army of sharks and Atlanteans and is like, I can take it from here, old chap, and then just beats the garbage out of him.
I mean,
Like,
look, he's a king. He's a king. He's a king of a race on Earth that is not weak. And they kind of fall into the Thanagarian banner as far as I am a strong being with a unique power set. Unfortunately, I am, put up against Superman. And that's kind of sad because Aquaman has been portrayed a lot of times very well. The best time I've ever seen him portrayed, weirdly enough, was when he was in Batman's Bloodstream.
okay,
That's Batman the Brave and the Bold episode. He's in Batman's bloodstream. He can talk to the amoebas and all of the bacteria in Batman's bloodstream. He can, of course, because it's blood and water, like he can control the liquid around him. So he's
sure.
really strong in the bloodstream. Like he was shrunk down, I think, with the atom.
That's
Actually,
awesome.
it's a really fun episode. Go watch it if you have the time. But it's a really neat kind of idea. Like in that episode, he can make weapons out of water, and that's not a consistent ability as far as I know. But the sad thing is, he has been depicted really well. They do have a good biop, like they do have a good way to. They'd have a good way to do it. They have a good structure for making him a really interesting character. One of the best depictions of him is when he saves his son. Like he cuts off his hand to save his son.
Sure.
I think that was in Justice League Unlimited. I could be wrong,
Well,
but
yeah, I think he shows up with the hook in Justice League Unlimited.
he's like, that's cool, that's
Right.
neat. He's
And it's
immediately a
so
really
sad that he's
interesting character.
always thought of as like the lame hero, or as like now he's got like Jason Momoa and he's like the frat boy hero. And it's like, no, he's a king. Like he's
He's a
regal and powerful.
he's a king. Look, a lot of people compare him to Namor over in Marvel, and yeah, that's a pretty apt comparison.
Sure.
They
Yeah.
do basically the same thing. It's
And in
just
my
for some
mind,
reason Aquaman doesn't stick.
right. And I think in my mind, it's just one of those things where I think it should be okay. Aquaman has to fight on home turf, and it's more getting the fight where he wants to get it and planning it out. You can have him be because he can communicate with all the sea life. You can have him do a bunch of cool things, set a bunch of cool traps, work with the other Atlanteans, fight underwater. There's a ton of ways that he's not used because most of the time he's just, I don't punch quite as hard as Wonder Woman or Superman. I don't fight quite as well as them, but here I
I'm
am.
gonna do it anyway.
Right. And it's like,
Uh,
finally, Green Lantern. Green Lantern is it's a creativity issue. A lot of the times he's got like big boxing gloves or guns or whatever. I think to me with Green Lantern, it's about creativity and distance and intelligence. And really, he should be able to. Now, I mean, obviously, there are going to be people that are strong enough to break his constructs, which I'm fine with. I think if they
yeah.
couldn't, he would be just like rigged. But on the flip side, I don't know. There's a lot of fun stuff that he can do that I just think he doesn't do.
All right, you want minions? Yeah, okay, I'll make minions. Sure. Can I make a copy of Superman? Yeah. Okay. Like there's a lot of things that a Green Lantern ring can do based on willpower. And I like that idea. It's an escalation engine. As long as I am confident in my will that I can beat this person, I can do this. I can
Sure.
throw out whatever I want. The second I lose my confidence, okay, I'm useless.
Right.
That's interesting. That is a built-in.
Well, like when they used him in Justice League Doom, they injected him with Scarecrow's fear toxin. And it was like perfect. He's got like a built-in weakness.
Yeah, that's cool.
Um,
That's neat. And whenever you have the other lanterns, Red Lantern, Yellow Lantern, Blue Lantern, Indigo, Blue. I said no. What's the other one? Violet. Colors of the rainbow. The green one starts looking a little weak until you realize like willpower is perhaps the easiest thing to get. Overconfidence is a very easy thing to have.
I think the other thing that's always been interesting about it is that and I could be wrong, but I don't ever see Green Lantern artists or engineers. And that would be an interesting Green
I
Lantern
think there
character.
was a Green Lantern artist, I think.
It's
I think
possible, sure.
she's a new thing.
Mm. Okay,
Um,
so I think we've covered kind of how we could write these mid-tier heroes that normally get